If you won your fantasy football championship in the 2023 season, congratulations. Now let's get you one in 2024. That's right, we're getting you ready already with our way too early top 12 running back rankings. All right, let's start off with number one, and well, this one is probably not a big surprise. I think it has to be CMC, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has to be Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he was a running back cheat code this year. I mean, there's risk, but there's risk with every running back. If he stays healthy, he's going to smash. He's got to be number one.
Yeah, he's one of the very few running backs that you selected very early who you were very happy with all the way throughout the end of the season. Christian McCaffrey, there's really just not much debate here. He's probably going to be number one all throughout the offseason and draft season. Now, who's next up? Number two, maybe number three? That is up for debate. So right now we have the same two guys, but not in the exact same order. I think it's going to come down to which of these young running backs you prefer. You like Breece Hall at number two overall. I prefer Bijan Robinson, but then we have them flip-flopped. So what gives the edge to Breece in your opinion?
What gives the edge to Breece for me is certainty. We know he's going to be the guy in this Jets offense. We know he's going to get the touches. I don't know if Robert Saleh has Breece Hall on his fantasy team or what did he get, like 40 carries in week 18? I mean, we know this guy is going to get every single touch. He's going to catch passes. Not to mention, he's now 2 years removed from ACL, which means we're going to see fully healthy, fully explosive Breece Hall. So simply because there's not uncertainty here with who's going to be the head coach, what is this offense going to look like, I'm going to put Breece Hall slightly above Bijan Robinson.
Well, I'll start by saying I'd be perfectly happy with either of these guys. They're both studs, so this is kind of a toss-up, but I will give the edge to Bijan because think about what we said all year. What were we all hoping for more than anything? Maybe even more than our own teams winning. It was for Arthur Smith to finally be relieved of his duties, and he was. And we said that's all it will take for Bijan to be the number one running back possibly is for Arthur Smith to go. He's gone. That's it. We got it. All right, so will he finally be unlocked? I mean, I don't know. We'll see if it happens to the extent that we want it to happen, but got to remember, all season long, there was only 5 games that Bijan Robinson had 15 or more carries on the ground. That's got to increase. He's already a prolific receiver, as is Breece Hall. My only concern, if there is a concern really with Breece, is that remember, he led all running backs in receptions. I wonder if that actually scales down a little bit because instead of, guys like Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle and Zach Wilson, just checking it down because they can't throw it down the field without getting picked off, maybe with Aaron Rodgers, maybe we get a little bit less of that. But again, I'd be perfectly happy with either of these guys. All right, now we go to picks 4 and 5. You got Kyren Williams at 4. I got him right there after at number 5. I think in this offense, he's the bell cow. He's got to be ranked this high.
Yeah, exactly. He's the bell cow. It's a great offense for running backs. He catches enough passes. I mean, it kind of dried up a little bit down the stretch, but he catches enough. He's got touchdown upside. I think he's got to be a top 5 running back at least next year.
Yeah, it almost doesn't matter whoever the guy is that Sean McVay decides. I wish it was Cam Akers, but it's not. But if nothing changes, Kyren Williams has to be. We saw what he did last year. He has to be one of the top running backs in all of fantasy again. Now, I got Saquon Barkley at 4 ahead of him because I will just tell you this. I still think Saquon Barkley is objectively at least one of the top 2 or 3 most talented running backs, just pure talent in the league, which is why he was drafted so high, which is why, despite the Giants' offense, he still manages to look like an elite running back. I've got to think somehow, some way, this Giants' offense will be better next year. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Can it be worse? I shouldn't ask that because it could be, but still, I am going to trust in Saquon and the talent, and hopefully the Dayball can get the most out of him next year. Now, you're trusting in Jahmyr Gibbs. You got him as a top 5 back. Do you really think he starts to separate from David Montgomery?
I do. I think we saw that a little bit anyways, but what I really like about Jahmyr Gibbs, you talked about Saquon Barkley being one of the most talented running backs. He showed he's also one of the most talented running backs. Explosive ability, the pass catching, and he's in this offense behind this offensive line. And what you got to love is, unlike DeAndre Swift, who we all wanted to kind of be what Jahmyr Gibbs is, Dan Campbell drafted Jahmyr Gibbs and seems to trust Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think that's huge for me, just knowing that Dan Campbell trusts this guy. Now going into year 2, I could see this being more like a 55-45, maybe even a 60-40 in favor of Jahmyr Gibbs next year. And behind this offensive line, with his explosive ability, that gives him tremendous weekly upside.
Now, one pick we're both in consensus is Jonathan Taylor, number 6. This feels about right for him. I don't know that we can put him as one of the very top, not a first rounder, but you can't drop him much lower. Here's the thing. We're going to maybe get the answer to the question we didn't get last year is what is JT's value going to be with a full season of a running quarterback who runs a lot near the goal line like Anthony Richardson? Do you think that he maybe gets hurt more than this?
I don't think so. I think it helps. I mean, look at some of the running quarterbacks. Look at the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. Always good running backs. Look at DeAndre Swift this year, best year of his career. Look at Miles Sanders last year, best year of his career. Look at James Cook this year. I don't think this running quarterback hurts the running back thing is anything more than a myth that no one's ever actually proven. And look, maybe it hurts them in the sense of like pass catching, but you're not drafting JT for massive pass catching anyways. I think if anything, this helps JT. It opens up the running game. Teams can't stack the box. I think we're going to see JT look more like the JT who was the overall number 1 running back. It just really comes down to, can this guy stay healthy for the full season?
Now the next group, this is a group where we got some of the same players just a little bit mixed up. I go Jahmyr Gibbs, number 7. You got Travis Etienne. I want to talk Etienne real quickly. I have him still within this same group, but a little lower at number 9. Look, there's nothing good we can say about the Jaguars after the way they ended this season, except Travis Etienne maybe was their best offensive player when it was all said and done. What happens with this Jaguars offense after the way they just completely collapsed in the second half?
I mean, you got to hope it gets better. It can't really get worse, hopefully. You got to hope Trevor Lawrence looks more like the guy we saw at the end of 2022 rather than the guy we saw at the end of 2023. Got to hope Doug Peterson figures this offense out, gets them rolling. But we know Travis Etienne is the guy. He's a workhorse. He catches passes. He's got the potential to rip off long runs. I mean, we saw it in week 17, that 63-yard touchdown. So for me, like Travis Etienne, I'm betting on the talent. I'm betting on the fact that he'll be a workhorse running back. And I'm betting on the fact that the offense at least gets better.
They got to figure something out, and I don't even know if we can put our finger on what the issue is. But the only reason I have Etienne a little lower, and I still agree he is an RB1 because, I mean, talent-wise, it's all there for him, and he's getting pretty much all the touches in that offense. Tank Bigsby just did not wind up being a factor, and I don't think they're going to bring in any competition or anything like that. It's just the whole offensive system in general. Sometimes they'll just abandon the run, even when they don't need to, and Trevor Lawrence is just turning the ball over way too much. So those are the only reasons I'll put him a little bit lower than some other guys on this list, like a Rachaad White. Look, we both loved Rachaad White before the 2023 season, and he came through big time. And so I don't think we can even argue that he's got to be an RB1 heading into next season.
Has to be an RB1. We know he's going to get all the touches here. They're not going to bring in competition for Rachaad White. I know people are going to say, well, he wasn't very good on the ground. Well, a lot of running backs weren't very good on the ground, but it's not all Rachaad White's fault. This is a terrible run-blocking offensive line. If anything, maybe they're going to improve the offensive line, and we're going to see an even more efficient Rachaad White. But we know he's a workhorse. He's going to get all the touches. He's going to catch passes. They're probably going to bring Baker Mayfield back because he got him to the playoffs. So you should feel fairly good about Rachaad White again in 2024.
And I'll say this, having Baker Mayfield, it doesn't make you excited about the offense. Definitely did not hurt Rachaad White. He wound up being 4th in terms of receptions of all running backs last year. And what if Mike Evans doesn't come back, which is very possible, maybe even more dump-offs for White. And then to round out the top 12, here's where it gets interesting. You can make a case for a lot of these guys. There's some big-name running backs, some veterans, who you're not going to see on our early list. But let's talk about the ones that are on here. We both agree Devon Achane is basically a fantasy RB1 in your typical 12-team leagues. I'll let you defend him first because I have obvious reasons, but how do we think that he can be the guy there when Mostert is the one who was really the lead back all year and led the league in touchdowns?
Yeah, Achane is going to be without a doubt the most polarizing, toughest running back, maybe even player to rank and talk about in fantasy next year. Because like you said, Raheem Mostert's still under contract. Raheem Mostert was great this year. He's going to be back. Like, there's no doubt. Like, this isn't like a cut candidate. He's going to be back next year. Just led the league in touchdowns. But also, Achane, we've seen his explosive ability, what he can do in this offense. You got to think in year 2, even with Mostert, they're probably going to get Achane more run. And like, this offense also wasn't as good down the stretch as they were early in the year. Jalen Waddle was hurt. They had injuries on defense and things like that kind of hurt this entire team. We should see a better Miami offense in 2024, one we saw more like it earlier in the year. So Achane, one of these guys, yeah, you can make a case for him and against him, but I'm going to chase that upside.
That's it. What do we always preach? It's about the upside. I don't care if he, maybe isn't the guy leading the team, even in touches in the backfield. I care about his weekly ceiling. And there's no way you can say he doesn't have as high a weekly ceiling as basically any of these other running backs on the board. I'll take the downs and the inconsistency if he's giving me those massive weeks, which he should. And really the only thing surprising about Raheem Mostert getting injured toward the end of the season is that it took so long. He's going to be another year older, 32 years old, I think. Achane is going to get used more next year. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to easily be an RB1. But just ahead of Achane, you got Isaiah Pacheco. So this tells me you're buying into him, really retaining that RB1 role, no competition coming in, and staying healthy.
Yeah, I don't think the Chiefs are going to address running back. I don't think they look at their team and think that's a need. Hopefully they address wide receiver. That's a definite need. I think Isaiah Pacheco has been good enough for this offense and in fantasy for me to rank him here. We know he's going to get pretty much all the touches. He catches a decent amount of passes, has touchdown upside. When you're in this range here, there's a bunch of guys I feel like you could put in here, but to me, Pacheco has the most upside on a given week in this Chiefs offense.
Yeah, what will be interesting to see if the Chiefs do anything to address wide receiver and give Mahomes more options. But still, I agree. Pacheco does have a ton of upside. I'm going to go with a guy I loved in the preseason last year and turned out to be really, as far as I'm concerned, one of the more productive running backs for fantasy when he was in there, Brian Robinson. And I know this might seem a little generous, but hey, he was at some points a top 10 fantasy running back. Injuries kind of kept him out at the end of the season. But just think about how good he was. And this was with Sam Howell, who we now have found out, oh yeah, he's not really that great. He was one of the least efficient quarterbacks in the league. I'm guessing they're going to replace him. And Ron Rivera, already out. They're going to have a new system again here in offense to invigorate this team. And then probably address offensive line as well. I think things just get better for Robinson. I don't think that there's really that low of a floor for him. And so his weekly upside is still pretty high. The floor, I think, is maybe higher than some of these other running backs that we aren't naming here. And then number 12, going Josh Jacobs, which if you look at Jacobs' body of work, this might seem low, but I don't even have him on my list, so who am I to talk? What do you think Jacobs does? Is he going to be still exact same as last year, bell cow?
Yeah, I mean, Jacobs is an interesting one because he's technically a free agent again. Will they franchise tag him? Will they sign him? Will he walk? But I think wherever he plays next year, he's going to be a bell cow type running back. Whether he walks and signs somewhere in free agency or whether they bring him back, he's going to be the guy. Again, we're at this range here where there's guys, you don't feel great about any of them. You don't feel like any of them really deserve to be here, but you got to put somebody here. That's kind of how I feel about Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, some big name players who we don't really know where they're going to play next year, Jacobs being one. Austin Eckler, not even on our list. What's he going to do next year? Derrick Henry, another one. But you know what? I feel pretty good after his speech about the fact that Derrick Henry knows he's not coming back to the Titans. So let's take a shot here. I'm going to put Tyjae Spears at number 12 because look what Tyjae Spears did when he's given the chance to be the guy. Averaged 4.5 yards per carry, caught a ton of passes, proved to be a really good receiver. And I don't know exactly what the future holds for this offense. But one thing I know, it's still going to be a pretty conservative offense because they really don't have the firepower to be anything but a conservative offense. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to throw it to the running back a lot. And if Henry is gone, I think Tyjae Spears could be next year's breakout running back. Those are some of the top running backs on our early draft board. We're going to draft a lot of those guys. Well, these are some players that we probably are not going to even touch.